The way it's organized is I'm going to give you a quick intro on zero waste, and then each of the panelists will introduce themselves and their business and what they're doing related to zero waste. Then we're going to have a little chat among ourselves if it works, and then we'll open it up to all the rest of you. So, before I tell you what I want you to remember today, I want to know how many of you feel you have a good grasp of what it means to, what zero waste means. Wow, that's fabulous. That's many more than in some crowds. Well, I'd like to ask, if I get a chance, I'm going to ask you that question later too, and if I don't, and you see me in passing, tell me if this presentation has changed your sense of zero waste any. So first of all, I want you to remember that zero waste helps reduce climate change in a big way, helps create green jobs and businesses, promotes local sustainability, and local foods and composting. And if you want more information on this, those websites at the bottom will be presented later along with other resources. So, zero waste in a nutshell. It's source reduction on steroids, high diversion or 50% or better. Now in California, 50% is no big deal because that's the mandated state requirement, but in the national average is 35% recycling. So anything over 50% is considered high diversion, but there are many businesses and jurisdictions working towards zero or are at least better than 85%, 90%. So keep in mind that all materials are resources and we don't want to waste any of them. All goods should be designed for reuse and recovery, and that everything we recycle, reuse, manufacture should be focused on highest and best use. For example, we can reuse bottles 7 times before they get too weak. Those bottles shouldn't be recycled, and if they are recycled, they should be recycled in more bottles. Now, there's a big industry that uses waste glass for insulation, and that's a great thing, fiberglass. But the truth is, the highest and best use may very well be another glass container, one that's reused many times. So, zero waste is an international movement. The most common, well-known organization is called the Zero Waste International Alliance. What you see here is their definition. I have tried to rewrite this 3 or 4 times, but let's just say it's a big international crowd, and many people are very opinionated on definitions, and so we're still working with this one. But basically, my little preferred short version is no burn, no bury, no toxics. Now, EPA has not formally embraced zero waste, though I have worked on 3 or 4 projects for them, and they do have a zero waste microsite, but they prefer to work within the framework of sustainable materials management. Since we're short on time, I'm not going to go into detail here, but I do want you to know that it's very complementary to the Zero Waste International Alliance definition. So, the purpose of this slide is to make a very important point. Recycling is not zero waste. That in the world that I inhabit, and many other people inhabit in this regards, recycling is the tail end, and that we should reuse, repair, remanufacture, and compost long before we go through the process of recycling something. Now that turns our current model on its head, but it's possible, as proven by many large cities, including San Francisco, Seattle. I could go on at length, but we're going to focus today on businesses. I already mentioned this. These are the things that I want you to remember. Reduces climate change, creates jobs and businesses, promotes local sustainability. Now, how do you like this graphic? I really like it, because everybody knows what an iceberg is, and everybody knows what happened to Titanic. Well, this is an example of our wasteberg, because 71% of the waste generated are done before you receive a good. They're created before you receive an item. For example, that laptop in your hand. Believe it or not, it creates 7 to 10 times more of it than its own weight upstream. And that this is why redesign is so, so important. And that we really have to get on a bandwagon. And extended producer responsibility is a wonderful step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it often turns into what you might call a hybrid recycling program. And, oh my, 1 minute. So, Wasteberg. All right, the recycling industry is the size of the auto industry. Pretty damn cool. There are many, many, many businesses leading the way to zero waste. If you're interested, I recommend you go to the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council and check out their websites. I'm one of their affiliates. Now, save money, reduce liability, increase efficiency, reduce greenhouse gases, marketing edge, right thing to do. This presentation will be available online. All right, I'm going to skip to the chase. I came up with a few examples to make to you of household items that are products, but what's the difference between a zero waste product and an environmental product? For example, the toothbrushes on the left. How many of you reuse your toothbrushes? I use the ones with heads. So my toothbrush is the purple one, so I use it over and over and over again, so I haven't bought a normal toothbrush in a decade. Same thing with batteries, rechargeable batteries, napkins instead of paper towels, glass containers instead of plastic. Sorry, I'm going so fast. So, I'm done. Here's a list of resources and tools. Our next speaker is Elena Oliveira with Pulp Works and Paul Tasner of the same organization. They're going to introduce themselves.
Hello? Can you hear me or? Okay. Hi, can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So we are Pulp Works. We are designers and manufacturers of sustainable packaging for the consumer good industry. We use paper and agricultural waste, and we eliminate all unnecessary packaging, plastic in packaging. So. Paul Tasner has been in this business for 40 years. He has done manufacturing and client development and supply chain. His contacts and his knowledge have been invaluable to this venture. I have been in green architecture for 25 years, and so I manage the design, the sustainability, and the corporate social responsibility for this company. We use experts at different times for different needs that we have. And we have a great advisory board that has helped to strengthen our venture and make it a reality. Why we are here today is because, I guess so. I forgot to move the slides. Oh, this side, sorry.
Point towards him.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Maybe aim at that.
No, one more. Okay. Oh, maybe I have to aim at that. That's cool. Sorry. Technology. Oh, this way. Okay. So we're here today because plastic is a worldwide crisis, and it's everywhere. It's on land and sea. We all know these pictures. And what Pulp Works is trying to do is to tap into one segment of the market and create a sustainable packaging without plastic. It's not only a global problem, it's a local problem. This is Paul looking at a pile of waste in Marin, if you can recognize him. And, you know, the reality is that the US represents 5% of the population in the world, but generates about 30% of the waste. And only 6 to 12% is recycled today. So we do have a problem. For example, PVC, which is one of the plastic used in packaging sometimes, releases about 130 million pounds of CO2 equivalent every year. It needs the energy of a mid-sized nuclear plant to be manufactured. So it's very energy intensive. And when it's burned, which is what happens in landfill often, it creates cancer-causing dioxins that can harm your immune and reproductive system. So I guess we all know this frustration that we have when we try to open this blister packaging. It's non-injury free. Probably you cut yourself before. I did, for sure. It's even called rat rage. They gave it a name because it's so frustrating that it creates rage and frustration for sure. So what we have done is we created a sustainable replacement for the blister pack. So our blister pack, which Paul has in his hand, it's consumer friendly, it's easy to open, it's compostable in the bin or in the garden, it's cradle to cradle, is basically cost competitive with the original one. It even displays in the store in the same way as the original one, but still nobody adopts it yet. But as Clorox have done this, PhD has done the same, Clorox bleach pen or Tide to Go, whatever they call it. And we IP'd the Acarta pack to be able to propose this option to some companies. And finally, about a month ago, a beauty company, CoverGirl, which is part of Procter & Gamble, called us for the first time in a long time. And actually, we are going to see them in about a month. So this is the front and the back of the package, and it's a typical thing we have. Why we have so many customers? We have so many customers because pretty much everything in the business, household, office, toys, and so on, can be packed into a Acarta pack. And you know probably some of these names. Also because we offer some new raw materials. We don't do paper and corrugated only, but we also offer agricultural waste, bagasse, switchgrass, and miscanthus. With this, we can offer textures and color. And so the customer gets sustainable, but also beautiful packaging. And this is some of the example. And this is some of the trays that we do for showcasing some items. We all talk about the compostable lid. We tend to, we actually put in landfill about 10 billion of these a year, the plastic ones. So we've done that for probably, since I remember. So, we have a problem, and we propose this to companies. They're not adopting it yet because they say it doesn't taste like plastic. And thank God. So you as consumer, you should go out there and tell them, we want a compostable lid. And finally, we do some international work with companies that do good in the world. Land Life Company replants desert areas, and they're from the Netherlands. We do some work in Tunisia with gas meters to control the energy consumption in Tunisia. And we do work in India with companies that actually created a toolkit for rural areas in India to deliver safely babies when the hospital is not an option. We got a lot of awards because we did a lot of competitions and we got recognized for our efforts, and we've been in the press a lot. Last month in Money Magazine and in San Francisco Chronicle, being one of the 8 finalists in the Visionary Award, San Francisco 2016. Thank you.
I'm just going to stay. Hello? Hi. I'm just going to stay here because my props are here. I'm Barbara Roberts from Wright Engineered Plastics. And yes, we're manufacturing plastic right here in Santa Rosa. And it's part of our life. It's a big part of our life. And we want to make sure that we are a manufacturer that is as green as possible. In fact, we were the first green certified manufacturer in the Bay Area. And why were we first? Because we created the program with Sonoma County. And that's because there was a lot of attention paid to office and retail and household, and nothing to, no attention paid to manufacturing, which is huge. Let's talk about why 7 times as much waste is created to create that laptop. And maybe you'll understand a little bit more about it when you're done. So we make products, for example, this product here is just a window that goes on a big blood diagnostic unit for Abbott Labs. And it needs to be clear. And for Abbott, they want it to be perfect, because here in the United States, we like our things to be perfect and look perfect. There's never any flaws on anything that you get that's plastic. And so if there's a little speck of anything or a little scratch of anything, this is not going to be used. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Next slide. So those are all the ones we're discarding. So to make one of these, we're making maybe 3 sometimes. We have startup, we have flaws that happen, all sorts of stuff. So what happens to this? This is industrial waste. And if it's something like this, this is a hazardous waste container. If there's anything wrong with it, it's going to leak, and that's going to be a bad thing. So we would need to throw this away. But let's not throw it away. And that's what's happening, is that many producers of products here in the United States and all over the world, certainly in other countries, if there's a flaw and they're throwing it away, it ends up in landfill, which is very expensive environmentally. The other thing that happens in industrial waste is packaging. We make these Harry Potter glasses for Universal Studios Ride. Okay, so the lenses in these are very special. They are made here also from a company here in Santa Rosa. And they come to us, they can't have any scratches on them, of course, so they come to us in a blister pack that looks like this. That's the next slide. So we get thousands and thousands and thousands of these. And so we take them out, and we manufacture these glasses, which we ship. Not much waste there, but we've got the packaging, and we have to deal with that. So what's the solution? The solution is that we have to segregate it all, and then we can actually sell it to a recycler. If we don't segregate it, if we throw it into a bin, it doesn't go in the recycling bin because it doesn't have the recycling codes on it. You can't identify what the material is when it's industrial waste in this condition. So it won't go anywhere. It'll end up in landfill. Even if you just try to throw it in your plastic recycling, doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. So what we do is we classify, and if you can see on each one of these Gaylords, there's an identification of what that material is. And if you identify it and segregate it, and we sell it by the truck load, basically, to a recycler in this condition, then it can be made into other things. And that's true recycling in an industrial environment. And that's as good as you basically can get, because you can't eliminate this because it's coming to you from another source. If they can send it to us in paper, it would be great, except for that it would have little particulates all over it, and you'd have to wash it, and that would be a bad process. So it's an endless cycle of trying to improve and trying to get better and trying to put as little as possible into the dumpster. Thank you. Oh, I don't need the clicker. Go ahead.
I'm Brian Bauer. I'm with ReSynergi Corporation. We are right here located in Soco Nexus. Really happy to be here. It's really inspiring this morning to hear different speakers. There's been so much support here in this community, collaboration, so many people involved in sustainability and so forth, just right on this campus, and it's great to hear Brad talk about what's coming up next. With just these few minutes I have, our company, we make equipment that takes plastic. Lots of the plastics is not recycled today, and we convert that into oil. So the oils they're diesel grade, gasoline grade, ready for putting right into vehicles. And what we're doing is keeping things from being discarded in the dump. So just as we saw a couple of these pictures before, what we do is we're monetizing and making profitable. As Elizabeth was saying, the motivation to actually become active for a lot of people in the world is to actually be able to make a profit. So In the Manila Bay, for example, there are kids picking out #1 plastics, the PET plastics, because they can get money for that, and it's so thick, the other plastics and other material, they're walking on top of the bay, and they're ignoring all the other plastics. We want to change the world in a way that people are taking all the rest of the plastics and processing that. A lot of the plastics, when it gets too far down the cycle, it's really difficult to recycle. The numbers are around 10% plus or minus that are actually recycled. So we want to make sure that we're not burning, there are no toxic outputs, and the overall carbon footprint for what we do is far less than the process today, when you consider the whole picture of transportation and so forth and storage. So if you look at the market for doing this, it's about 32 million tons of plastic just in North America alone, and that's about $35 billion worth of energy. When we want to talk about monetizing, the former model was plastics were all collected, a good portion of them were shipped off to China, and a lot of those plastics, so what China said recently, just the last year and a half, is we're not going to take this anymore. We're finally going to go a little more green over here, and we're not going to take all your plastic. So a green wall went up, and now a lot of that plastic is piling up here, and it's getting shipped around. It's very costly to deal with. So a recent study suggested we could have 600 major plants in the US alone, and it's about $9 billion in total capital equipment to get that going and create up to 40,000 jobs, and this is just North America. If you look globally at what's happening, these are the countries that are not managing, the larger circles there are the countries not managing their waste very well, their plastics, and that ends up in the ocean. So we're all real familiar with the big gyres in the ocean. There's tons and tons of plastic, big islands of plastic, but there's also along the coastlines, there's big piles. So we're working with a couple organizations that are actually mapping the coastlines globally, and we'll work with them on getting units that will recycle that. Now the traditional way of recycling a lot of this is to start a big plant. And the way to get to these locations and really address this is to have mobile solutions. So with our technology, we have really advanced heating technology that's really compact. It allows us to make mobile units that are available to the coast sides and all over the world, and to smaller towns like Sebastopol, Healdsburg, locations where it will avoid having to ship a lot of plastic around. The fixed facilities are tens of millions of dollars to start. With our units that are smaller, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's easier to fund, it's easier to start this kind of initiative in different communities. What we do, our company in particular, is we focus on those plastics that are most prevalent, number 2, 4, 5, and 6, that are more easy in our process. When we talk about toxics, the one that's real bad is number 3, PVC. It's got the chlorine gas that can come out of it. So these are all sorted and get the single streams, and we deal with those very well. I mentioned we are much smaller footprint, and both from a physical and a carbon footprint standpoint. Real quickly, the process we use is called pyrolysis. There's no oxygen involved. That's really key to this. So there's no burning, there's no incineration, and it basically, we heat the metal, we heat the plastic, it's liquefied, and then the final gasification stage takes it to gas. And when you take it to gas and cool it, it goes to oil, and we can break that down into primarily diesel, gasoline, and then others. And a real key point is the carbon footprint. So what we do compared to incineration, if you look at the far right, if you take a kilogram of solid and you process that in incineration in China or wherever that's done, oxygen comes into play, and you get almost 3 kilograms out of that of CO2 emissions. It's really bad stuff, and you know this for so many reasons you know about this issue. But when we go through our process with no oxygen involved, it's far less. It's a 96% reduction in CO2. And then this is before even considering the transporting across the country, all over the place, and across the ocean and bunker oil. It's just really toxic. We're able to intercept that right at the local level and turn that around and take it to a cradle-to-cradle type of solution. We bring it right back to where it can be used again. So does it make money? Final slide here is we've created a solution it's very fast. Pyrolysis is what it's called. It's very efficient and small. If we run our cost models on this, it's less than 50 cents a gallon to make the oil. And it's $1 wholesale, and you know what it is at the pump, $2.50, $3, $2, whatever it is. Anyway, it's very profitable. When someone buys this equipment, it's a very quick payback. It's much faster than a lot of other green solutions. And then the most important thing is it's profitable to those all over the world in so many different modes, small scale, large scale. All right, thank you.
How are we doing on time?
You're fine. You got 5 minutes on the next speaker, and then you got time for...
Okay, so do any of you have a question for each other?
I have a question for you. Can you take my plastic?
Absolutely.
It's not marked 1 through 7, so, but I know what it is.
Yes, actually, we get that question a lot locally. When, we are developing the product as fast as we can, and somewhere around third quarter we expect to have a situation where we could take a lot for our demo sites. Now, what we do is we sell our equipment to operators. So we're like a telecom company. That's where the founders are from. We make the equipment, and then somebody like AT&T, Verizon, they operate the equipment. So we have pilot sites in Ohio and a couple places in Canada. And as soon as those prove out, we'll bring it to Sonoma County. Yeah.
Very cool.
Any other questions here? Okay, I have a question for you. What's the difference between a green business and a green product? And then what's the difference between a zero waste business and a zero waste product? Anybody want to take that on?
I will if no one else will.
Barbara?
Okay, so number one, I don't have any products. I'm a service provider, so I don't have any green products. The green product solution has to come from whoever is the designer and manufacturer of the product. But I can operate a green business, and a green business means you lower your pollution, air, water, waste, all of it.
Energy.
Energy, absolutely. There's many energy solutions that you can have in a green business. And that's what operating a green business is all about. So you want to look for, if you're making a product, whether or not you make a green product, you should at least try to manufacture it in a green business.
Any responses to that?
Yeah, I don't know how you would classify us, because we're a non-asset-based business. We have no brick and mortar. We outsource our manufacturing. So our partners, and they are a fixed group, although we do tend to increase the number. Our partners operate green businesses to the extent that they can, and that we're aware of.
So your specifications are the way that you control that?
No, not entirely. I mean, the work they do is green because we're producing product from waste materials, but how they operate their businesses in general, we believe, to the best of our knowledge, because they're around the world, are operated in green fashion. I know it's true for several of them, because we know them personally, but our products are certainly green, created entirely from waste material and reusable to a certain extent, and then compostable once their life is over. I was going to, I didn't want to repeat any, Elena presented what we do quite well, so I didn't want to repeat any of that about us. But one thing I did want to say, there was a lot of talk about optimism and pessimism, or the earlier speakers earlier in the day. Mm-hmm. And we haven't been in business a terribly long period of time, maybe 4 years. But we've seen things change in those 4 years really dramatically, from early days where we spent all of our time knocking on doors and making calls and trying to interest people in at least taking a look at changing their packaging from whatever they're using to a more sustainable option, to the point now where the phone never stops ringing, so to speak. It just happens to be an email rather than a telephone nowadays, which is quite fantastic. Now, they're not all interested on the other end of the line. They're curious, certainly, and they don't all turn into projects that generate revenue for us, but the phone never stops ringing. And you know,
This little thing.
when the phone rings and Procter & Gamble's on the other line, that's pretty exciting for us.
Oh, sure, I can
I
imagine.
mean, this is the first time we have an opportunity to actually show something that is going in the right direction finally to a company that has done billions of these in blister pack. Every Walgreens, every CVS you get in, you have thousands and thousands and billions of these around the country. So to just even go and talk to them and say, there is a way forward, there is a solution, and we can do it without plastic is just amazing.
Fabulous, just fabulous.
I was going to say something about these bigger, maybe we might think of them as more evil companies, like Walmart, Walgreens, what are these big companies? They are actually creating really strong groups and organizations to change what they're doing. And they're really struggling right now with shipping plastics around the country, and they're actually storing a lot of these returns. And they have warehouses piling up, and it's a lot of stress for them to inventory that. And we're working on ways, you've got ways to reduce, and we've got ways of recovering.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot in the next few years on this.
Well, and the consumers are pushing back now. You know, we're all putting stuff in the bins, and it's more and more and more. And it's like everybody's getting really sick and tired of putting plastic into the bin and knowing that 10% is recycled and not 99% like in other countries. So it's you know, the millennials are not there anymore. They wanna change, and that's what probably is going to push the market forward. And we hope so.
Good point, good point. How many of you know what this is? It's called a growler. I've never heard of a growler in my life until recently, because I was curious about Oregon's bottle reuse law. Turns out California has one as well, that you can take a container of this sort to a brewery and they can fill your bottle. California has some rules where you have to cover up the label, but this is an example of a zero waste product that can be used again and again and again. It's also a green product, and it can get a little controversial because brewers don't want to be responsible for other people's beer. But I'm bringing this point to bear because we have to redesign the way we're doing things. And this is just absolutely wonderful what we're hearing about today, but I want to point out that we have to go farther. That not only do we have to improve the current methods of operating, we have to replace our methods of operating. And I don't know what to say about mascara, because I actually use my daughter's. But I do know some come in bamboo and some come in this and that. But the truth is we have to change the way we live and change the way we conduct our lives. For example, how many of you run around with a napkin and a cup and your own plate? A good number. It's irritating. It's just like when we started using reusable bags. Do you remember? You know, it took about 2 or 3 weeks to get used to the idea. I call it environmental time management. But after a while, it became what you did, and that the problem was when you forgot the bags.
Exactly.
Well, we have to expand that. We have to expand that. And I'm using home items, domestic items on purpose. I could use examples of businesses, but what I'm trying to say is we need to take these practices into the businesses. So I'm thrilled to meet these people and learn about what they're doing, and at the same time, I want to push everyone to not only be a green business, but become a zero waste business. The U.S. Zero Waste Business Council certifies people, just like the Green Business Program that is now statewide, that started here in Sonoma County, and Barbara was part of that. We have a certification program for zero waste businesses. And I recommend you go check it out. It's very interesting. And some of them are very, let's say, low-hanging fruit. For example, a brewery. For a brewery to go zero waste, it's not so hard because most of their spent goods are compostable and they have a lot of recyclables, but they don't really have a lot of challenging things. But like Sierra Nevada Brewery, and I'm not a drinker, people, I'm just using an example, is up above 95% diversion. And there's quite a few, Anheuser-Busch, Coors, there's quite a few alcohol-related businesses that are going towards zero waste. But there are also facilities that build airplanes. And I could go on at length at the various different types. But yes, Revive Kombucha is a good local example. Revive is a drink that you can buy in a reusable bottle. Strauss uses reusable bottles. And it'd be nice if a lot of agricultural products move toward reusable bottles.
Should we start growing more local hops?
Yes, that would be nice. Okay, questions? Stand up so I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Taylor, Ag Innovations. We have been following the pine beetle infestation in the Sierra Nevadas. You probably have followed that yourself. Thank you. I'm in the front, so there we go. All right. So we've been, Genevieve Taylor, Ag Innovations. We look at collaboration for natural resources in agriculture. We've been following the pine beetle infestation in the Sierra Nevada and also the cogeneration plant closures as that are a result of the utility district. I don't know much about how to make plastic, but I understand it's possible to use interesting products like bagasse or what have you. I'm wondering if there's any interesting business prospect in all of these pines that our Fish and Wildlife Services are really, really struggling to take care of. The other thing I know is that ag byproducts are also an issue, and there is interesting business products out of those ag byproducts, but it's a little bit easier to connect the dots than it is for those forests. Thoughts?
Well, there's now compostable plastic that has been created. I know that one of the speakers today is from World Centric, which is a local company here that is using PLA very extensively, which is, PLA is just a acronym for a very long poly something name, right? So, but anyway, what it is that in the end you can compost the plastic, and there's a lot of push for that on the consumer side. There's not a lot of it in the industrial side because most of it has to be more durable and usually has some environmental concerns that might degrade the plastic because it's supposed to be able to be degraded, right? So if you've got a plastic that's going to be compostable, it's going to degrade on purpose. So it can be used in consumers, but not too much in industrial. And using something like that, I know there's fibers they're using. There's all sorts of different kinds of chemical constructions that are being developed right now. It's a very big development area.
But you realize what the issue is with biodegradable plastics? Is the compost programs don't want it because they take longer to degrade than food waste and yard waste. An average system costs 10 days. Okay, she's not here. Just a moment. But Sonoma Compost, Will Box is a soil scientist that has had a great deal to do with this, is that biodegradable plastics are a great direction, and I'm not disrespecting them at all, but our municipal composting programs don't want them, so they should go in the landfill. Now, it's good for things to break down in the landfill, but it'd be better if we didn't use some of them in the first place. Okay, just a moment. Did you want to say something here about pines?
Just real quick, I was speaking to graduate school Berkeley on this topic, and the issue right now is because of the dryness this last couple seasons and this issue, the price of wood is extremely low and it's hurting businesses badly. And like the price of oil impacts us, but we've got a really strong model, and it's, you've got to look out over time and have sustainable business plans that can weather these ups and downs. Exactly,
and Cal Recycle, the Department of Conservation, is working hard on this because we're down to like 3 wood facilities that accept wood still, and so we're having a crisis. Large amounts of wood and very few places to take them. Go ahead.
So how many here have heard of the Community Resilience Challenge? Woo woo. So
two actions in particular that Daily Acts and other community advocates are advocating for this year. One would be a 3-month zero waste challenge where you actually get to try it on for 3 months, no disposable containers. I know it's going to be hard for those 3 months, but what I love about it is it develops habits that then you can use throughout the rest of your life. And the second challenge, because all of our compost, all of our organic materials, as many of us know, are being exported to 3 neighboring counties with the closure of Sonoma Compost. We're all familiar with that, right? So because of that, we're really emphasizing home composting and community scale composting through the Community Resilience Challenge this year. We really need to keep that organic materials here in our county. It's going 70 miles one way to Mendocino, Solano, and Marin counties. So we really need to keep that compost and organic materials here. It's all part of the zero waste.
Very good point. And one way to, a point to support that is it doesn't have to be perfect. Composting is forgiving, so don't worry if it's not perfect. Ha ha.
Just on that note of home composting, though, your compostable plastics, they won't work in your home compost either.
The volume is
Use them
such
for
that
parties, you can wash them,
chances
but-
are the biodegradable plastics will sit in the bottom of your pile for
That's
a long
right.
time.
Long time.
The truth is reusables are better. But like we're having a party soon, the disposables are much, much easier. So biodegradable disposables are better than the alternative of non-biodegradable. Any other questions?
I have a question here. You know, we put a lot of emphasis on compostables and biodegradables, but I don't hear a lot of talk about biodigestibles. Goats eat almost anything, pigs eat almost anything. Earthworms, in terms of home composting, are far better at digesting stuff than composting. Are you aware of any emphasis on developing packaging that can literally become, that is designed to be animal food, and or when it becomes litter, it can be eaten by creatures out there?
That's an interesting idea, and I know a lot of work is being done with taking food waste and turning it into a product to feed animals. The issue is infrastructure. We don't want to create a product when there's no infrastructure. So it'd be interesting to have a conversation, perhaps with Daily Acts, as to how to build the demand for those kind of products so that entrepreneurs choose to develop them. We have 1 more minute. Does anybody else have any questions about Zero Waste Sonoma County, Zero Waste USA, the world, anything? All right. All these resources that I mentioned today are on Zero Waste USA, and I will add what was presented here today to that website when I get them to make it easier for you all that want to look at this again. Thank you. Feel free to ask us any questions today.